All right, welcome, World Soccer Radio. Nick Geber and Danny Page with you here on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Great to be with you as we are each and every weeknight from 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific for you West Coasters out there. Danny, we've got some interesting discussions today, some big news coming about a massive tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been rumored for a long time, and it looks like we're finally able to almost kind of confirm that the Copa America is coming to the United States in 2016. I couldn't be more excited about this tournament. And Nick, it actually even has you pumped up about international football.
Well, it certainly does, Danny. This is a great tournament. This is the continental offset to the European Championships. This is beautiful stuff. U.S. and Mexico will be involved. 100-year centenary anniversary. We're going to talk about that, how excited we are. And I know, Danny, you have your fingers a little bit on the pulse about exactly where some of these matches will be held. So we're going to talk to you about that. Very exciting stuff. Also, Danny, let's talk about the January transfer window.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that so many teams really need some pieces in the Barclays Premier League to help elevate them to the next level for the remainder of the season. But here's the problem, Nick. No one is going to buy or, more importantly, sell anyone because it's a World Cup year. Very few players will change places. We'll talk about this kind of very different January transfer window leading into the summer's World Cup, of course, in Brazil. It is still in Brazil, right? That hasn't been changed.
It hasn't been changed yet. I think it's still going to be there, despite what Sepp Blatter says. Also, of course, let's talk about which teams need help in the Premier League. We'll try and run down as many teams as we can. We're just going to give you a brief overview of what they need and, of course, discuss if we think they're going to get any of that help. All right, once again, World Soccer Radio, Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Nick Geber and Danny Page, 800-878-PLAY. That's where you find us in the studio, 800-878-PLAY. Or you can find us on Twitter, at World Soccer Radio, at World Soccer Radio. Big hello to our men and women in uniform listening on the American Forces Radio Network. What a privilege it is to speak with you each and every weeknight, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, as if you're listening also on one of the affiliate stations of the Sports Byline USA Radio Network, or TuneIn.com, or HealthRadio.com, or WatchWSR.com, or WorldSoccerTalk.com. We are everywhere. We're taking over the world. But we will be right back right after these messages because it is break time. We'll be right back on the other side. 15. 10. 5. All right, welcome back to the show, World Soccer Radio, Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Nagiba, Danny Page. Danny, little Devo for you. You remember these guys?
Who?
Devo.
I do remember because they were the ones that whipped it.
Whip it good. Now, you like that, right? Whip it
they
good?
Whipped it good.
Now,
Yeah.
when you're
Devo.
doing your electronic dance music stuff, you're not playing Devo, right?
Do.
All right, let's...
Crack that whip.
That's it. You got it. I'm surprised.
You didn't hear the bass line?
No,
too, obviously?
on a week that sees you turn 30 years old, Danny, you still strike me as being very immature.
You know, we have some competitors out there, Nick, who also do soccer radio programs.
There are not many of them.
Their shows are all, the bumps in and out of the segments are all electronic dance music. But here instead we get 80s because they realize that they are catering to a younger crowd. But instead Nick's comment is, well, I don't like that and we're not going to listen to it.
That's right,
Look at
Danny.
me.
That's right, because it's good to be the king. And when it comes to soccer radio, Danny, I think that's me. I am the crown prince. I am the regent of soccer radio.
You are
been doing this a long time.
You are the man, the myth, the legend, the Geber. That's for
there
sure.
There may be others, but they are all pretenders. Trust me.
That is also true. I mean, really, you're making quite a case here, man. Pretty good stuff.
Absolutely. All right. So, Danny.
So, Nick,
we want to talk about the January transfer window.
Yeah.
Because this is some big stuff. Now, I know you have some opinions about the January window in terms of you don't think anything's going to get done.
I think it's interesting. Before we look at my opinion, there are a lot of teams that need something. You know, there are a lot of teams that need a lot of players in some cases, right?
Yeah.
As you go down the list, I think the only team that really wouldn't need to go out and buy is Man City. I think that they could do well to loan out Julian Lescott to West Ham, so Lescott at least has a shot at making the World Cup. But doesn't it feel like everyone needs someone at this point?
Well, it is. Danny, what does Daniel Sturridge, Mikel Arteta, Bratislav Ivanovic, Patrice Evra, Luis Suarez, and Nemanja Vidic, what do they all have in common?
What is that, Nick?
What do they all have in common, Danny?
I said, what is that?
They are all January signings.
You know who else, mind you? Fernando Torres.
Really? He was was he really?
Yeah, remember they did all the business on one day. They bought Suarez, Carroll on the same day they sold Torres. You don't remember that?
Oh, that's right. Of course. Yes, that's absolutely
now,
right.
But here's the thing. Here's my point. Is that do you know what day all of that happened? That happened January 31st, 2011. You know when it didn't happen? January 31st, 2010. Because all these clubs, like a Manchester United, of course, like an Arsenal, like a Chelsea, who just need a forward, basically, who just need a striker, that are in need of players. They all want to go out and buy someone, but all we're hearing in the press are individual players and members of management that are going out and saying, not for sale, not for sale, it's not happening, I don't want to change my place in a World Cup year. And that's my point, Nick, is there's been so much talk about who's going where in this World Cup year, and nobody's going anywhere because players don't like to change places.
Well, what about Lamela? I mean, Spurs want to move him on. They just signed him. They
want to loan him out, which is a distinct possibility that he could be a fine loanee.
But
to
would
a
it make a difference whether you're loaned
League.
out or sold out? I mean, if you're going to a new club, particularly one that, I mean, here's the flip side of this, Danny, and I think you're onto something here, because the issue then becomes, maybe I'm not getting the playing time I want at Barcelona or Madrid, but now I'm going to go to Fulham. Really?
That
Is that going to help my World Cup chances going to Fulham, even if I'm going to play week in and week out? I'm going to go to a team that's going to get beat week in and week out. How's that going to help my World Cup chances?
Right. And those are the type of moves that will happen. Okay. Those are the type of transfers that will take place, with a Lamella going on loan, probably to Spain or France, with the outside hope that somehow he'll work his way into the Argentina team. I think the key individual that falls under that, that pretense is Juan Mata, because Juan Mata is already on the outskirts of the Spain team. What a tremendous player, really. It's a shame that he's on the outskirts of the Spanish team. But in the end, this is a guy that does need to leave and does need to move on if he's really going to have an opportunity to make the Spanish World Cup team. But we keep hearing about these marquee guys. Diego Costa is the one I'm most tired of. He is not going anywhere.
Are you sure of that?
He's just not going.
I said this to you the other day. He has a £32 million release clause. If somebody meets the release clause and they can agree to personal terms, he's going.
But he will not agree to personal terms.
Why are you so sure of that?
He does not want to be unsettled ahead of the World Cup. He is the leading goal scorer in Spain outside of Ronaldo. And in some weeks, he vaults back up to the top. Why would you want to change places and go to a more physical, more difficult league when you've pretty much worked your way into the Brazil team for the World Cup in Brazil? Why would you want to make that move? I think it's so audacious and cocky of the English journalists to just assume that these world stars will flock to the Barclays Premier League at any time. I mean, the stories came out that Balotelli might go to Chelsea or Arsenal. Balotelli himself came out and said, the biggest thing I need in my life right now is calm ahead of the World Cup. And sure, we might see Balotelli back in England come August, but we're not going to see him in England this year. It's just ridiculous to think that these players would be sold in World Cup years. Now, the 2006 World Cup window was a bit more active. But a lot of the players that were sold, like an Emmanuel Adebayor, was a bit more active than the 2010 January window. Emmanuel Adebayor, he already knew he was going to the World Cup with Togo. So all he could do by moving from Monaco to Arsenal was add to his considerable reputation and placement. Nemanja Vidic would be another example, although I don't believe Serbia and Montenegro were in the 2006 World Cup. So, but he is also a player who was guaranteed of going, so he was fine moving from Spartak Moscow to Manchester United. I'm annoyed by the nearsightedness kind of the British press and of a lot of people thinking that basically these players, all they want to do is move to the Barclays Premier League, and that's not how it works. The World Cup is bigger in their minds.
Danny, I completely disagree with you because I think every player would like to move to the Barclays Premier League.
They'll do it in the summer.
There's not a regular starter on Madrid or Barcelona or on Bayern Munich, and that's the holy grail of money, the money-making machine. Whether or not they do it in January, that of course is the question. But we talk about release clauses. I don't know, Danny. I mean, it could come. Remember, you're forgetting about the power of the agents. Now, Diego Costa could say, I can go to the World Cup and I can double or treble my value if I have a great World Cup. On the other hand, if I go to the World Cup and get injured, my value is going to plummet. If I go to the World Cup and don't do well, my value is not going to increase. Maybe I take the top of the market deal now in the January window when prices are inflated because there are fewer players available. Look at Gareth Bale. I mean, they sold Gareth Bale, albeit in the summer, but at the height of the
Gareth Bale is not a World Cup player.
No.
He was bought in the summer.
I know, but you're not letting me make the point, Danny. Right. The point that I'm trying to make is he was a player that was sold at the peak of his value. Whether or not he was instrumental in Tottenham or not, they would never get more for him than what they got, so they decided to move him on. Even though that was the summer, now we're coming into January. It may be. Hey, listen, we are going to have to go to break here, Danny, in just a minute. So you are predicting no big moves? Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Because here's the thing that because the 4 English teams all qualified for the Champions League knockout stages, they want someone who's cup tied, but also it will need to be someone that is basically not a key player on a World Cup team going in. Who are the remaining transfer targets? Who can you buy that doesn't fall? I think.
Great question. Great question, Danny.
I think one player who I would spend a lot of money on if I were in need of a forward, I'd look at Edin Dzeko. Try and move him from City to Chelsea.
Well, it's funny you should mention this, Danny, because when we come back, let's look at who needs what. Which teams need help in the transfer market, whether or not you think they'll get it or not. All right, World Soccer Radio, Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Nick and Danny will be right back with you after this. $15. $5. Now, you know who this is, right, Danny?
Yeah. Beatles. No, obviously, it's the Rolling Stones. I mean, did you see the Rolling Stones before the Keith Richards geriatric phase?
No,
were you able to enjoy them back in the 70s?
I've actually never seen the Rolling Stones.
Really?
I've never seen the Rolling Stones.
Didn't I see them at Coachella some years? Did they play?
You might have.
Saw Paul McCartney.
You know, I like the Rolling Stones, but they've never been a band that's particularly. I felt like I have to see them. You know, never one of those.
It's just hard now because they're so far out there. You know?
They are so old and so geriatric, and you know, sometimes you just think, is one of them just going to keel over on stage? You know what I saw the other day was I saw Led Zeppelin back in when was it, 78 or 77?
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
That is so legit.
At Nebworth, they were absolutely unreal, and
Oh
and the funny thing is, I wasn't really a Led Zeppelin fan at the time,
Really?
but I became one. And
of course.
and then I saw video of their performance at the O2 about 5 years ago, where Jason Bonham was playing the reunion tour. And I tell you what, for a bunch of old guys, these guys were unbelievable. I mean, they're not quite as old as the Stones, But
They don't go out and tour ceaselessly year in and year out. I mean, it's still fresh. They still enjoy the music, I think.
I mean, the Rolling Stones are like some of these football teams around the world that feel that every summer they just got to go on tour and wring out every drop of money they possibly can.
Seriously.
And there comes a time where it's like, I don't want to see Club America anymore. I don't want to see this team on tour anymore. It's getting so dull.
Club America.
I'm just joking, because they're here in Southern California. They're one of these teams that's always tours, year in and year out.
I know what you're
saying.
But
anyway, let's talk about the January window, Danny, because you just got done saying how. By the way, welcome back to the show, World Soccer Radio. Nick Ebert, Danny Page, Sports Byline USA, every weeknight, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. There, did we get that taken care of?
I think we did.
Okay.
I think we did.
Because I know that, you just got done saying that you don't think in this particular January window, because it's a World Cup year, that we're going to see much movement. And, I think that actually you are speaking a great deal of logic, Danny. There's a lot to be said about your opinion on this one.
Am I getting credit here for
Well,
something?
I'm going to give you a little bit of credit, because I think you may be right. However, you have to remember that what we're having here is a pull, and it doesn't happen all that often. There's always the rumblings, there's always the discontent between the national team and the club team. Of course, this is one of the very few times when national teams will trump club teams in general. However, there are some big club teams with some big problems. And I have to wonder if the money, the opportunity, the ability to look just beyond this summer will possibly force some of these moves. Let's take a look in the Premier League and see who needs what. Now, Danny, we talk about Arsenal. I mean, Theo Walcott goes down, wrecks his ACL. He's out for 6 months. Will miss the World Cup as well as missing, the rest of the Premier League season. Arsenal have been on and off, shattered by some injuries. They do have some players coming back, but they have been very injury prone. Lots of problems. They need a new striker. They need one bad. I mean, of course, we talk about guys like Diego Costa, who you say there's absolutely no way he'll move. But, so
No.
what do they do, Danny? Who do Arsenal bring in? Because I can tell you, up front, they've been linked with Berbatov, and I believe the number there is 2 million from Fulham, 2.5 million.
Right.
Pedro from Barcelona.
Right.
I mean, there's a guy. Is he playing match in and match out at Barca?
Pedro has pretty much come out and said that he is not planning to leave Barcelona. That he is planning to stay.
Ignore what they say, because their agents have a lot to do with this too. And remember, the agents want to move because they'll take a piece of whatever that move is.
And remember, it goes back to the two major prerequisites, I think, for a club like Arsenal that wants to go out and buy a big player like Pedro.
Yeah.
The number one is that you prefer that they aren't cup tied to the UEFA Champions League. He's cup tied. And that Pedro,
but I'm not sure, by the way,
is
Danny,
not in that a move for Pedro would not endanger them missing, would not endanger him missing out on going with his team to the World Cup. And again, it's that same issue. Vicente Del Bosque does not really respect the English game. He thinks it lacks technicality. So why would Pedro leave a club where he is, albeit they have a difficult last 16 tie, leave a club where he might not be always first 11, but is seen as being in a World Cup place? Why would he jump ship on that for, possibly a fringe position at Arsenal? It just doesn't.
Well, hold on. Now, if Pedro moves, he's not getting a fringe position at Arsenal. I mean, if Pedro or Diego Costa or Morata, these are all guys that have been linked right now with Arsenal, or, Dimitar Berbatov's a different matter. But if they move Pedro, or they move Diego Costa, or they move Alvaro Morata from Madrid, or even if they move Angel Di Maria, these players will be starting. These will be players that will play on a regular basis, week in and week out. Why? Because Arsenal desperately need them. And they are currently sitting atop the Premier League.
What does it do for Pedro? Vote for Pedro, by the way. What does it do for Pedro if he does, in the end, move to move to, pardon me, Arsenal. What does it do for him in regards to making that Spanish World Cup squad?
Well, I don't know what it does. I don't know.
Doesn't he go from almost a certainty to becoming a fringe selection?
No,
doesn't it hurt?
No, I totally disagree. Look, first of all, he moves to almost, pardon me, Arsenal is different than if he moves to Arsenal itself. Two different teams. If he moves,
what?
You said almost, pardon me, Arsenal. I'm like, that's actually an excuse name for Arsenal. I like it.
Kind of.
But if he moves to Arsenal, Danny, he will be a starter. I can't see any of these players agreeing a move in January without a guarantee that they're going to be playing regular first-team football. That's number one. For me, the danger is the history of certain players moving to the Premier League that have taken time to settle. I know Jose Mourinho is a believer the players need a full year to settle down in the Premier League. I'm not a believer of that anymore. I used to be. I think
you're a believer.
I'm not a believer either, actually, at all.
No?
No. In fact, when I heard about his retirement, I cracked a wry smile.
Wry.
But if they're going to move, let's say Alvaro Morata is going to move from Real Madrid to Arsenal. He's not going to move to Arsenal unless he has a guarantee of first-team football on a regular basis. I mean, that's going to be written into that contract, Danny. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So then the question is he willing to make that move? If the money's right and the transfer money's right and he thinks he's going to get regular first-team football, a move to Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, well, let me back up. A move to Arsenal, Chelsea, or Man City, I don't think at this point would hurt anyone's World Cup chances. A move to Man United, well, that's a different matter. A move to Liverpool, I'm not so sure. A move to Tottenham or Everton, I'm not so sure. But if we're talking about one of the club that's currently sitting on top of the Premier League, plus Chelsea under Mourinho, plus a Man City and all their money and their high profile, I'm not sure that a move to one of those top three teams will affect someone's World Cup chances, Danny.
Yeah, I do see what you're saying.
If there's regular football guaranteed.
I think that coming to England is a really tricky proposition for a Spanish player specifically because of the way that the manager of the Spanish national team feels. He's outspoken on this, Nick, isn't he?
He is.
He's very clear that he really does not...
In between eating the pies. Yeah.
He really does not respect the English game very much. And I just think it's why take the risk? Why take a chance and go to a team where, yes, they're great football teams, but now you're no longer in the Champions League, and now you're wondering if you're going to qualify for the World Cup. It's just not going to happen. I think one of the moves that does make sense that may not add up financially is Radamel Falcao.
That's an interesting one.
Because he's guaranteed a Colombia spot, right?
Yeah.
He's going to start for Colombia. He's not cup tied. Obviously, he's going to cost a fortune for Roman Abramovich. But remember that he still can play in the Champions League, and Chelsea becomes a serious contender in that tournament with a Radamel Falcao up front. So that's one that I look at and I say, okay.
There are only two teams on the planet that can afford to pry Radamel Falcao away from Monaco right now. That's it.
Three maybe.
Well, only two that I think would be interested in. And I don't think Man City's interested in him at this point.
Right.
I think Chelsea definitely would be interested in him because they need strikers. But, you know, they just lost, £55 million, the last financial statement?
Yes.
There's financial fair play coming into effect. They're going to have to sell, I think, to buy. Not that that's a problem. I think they would happily sell half the squad if they had to bring Radamel Falcao in.
Yeah, I think that was the serious, or that is still, Nick. That is the serious issue. If you look at Chelsea now and where Mourinho was ready to go out and spend, £50 million on a striker, that they revealed those losses.
Well,
and it just isn't going to work out.
What's interesting is some of the names that actually they're being linked with at Chelsea are players that I can see moving. Leighton Baines, for example, from Everton. I mean, if they'll ever pry him away, right? Luke Shaw from Southampton, Adam Lallana, another Southampton player. I mean, those are kind of like lower-hanging fruit, but I mean, they're not at the same level as a Radamel Falcao. They are not at the same level probably as a Pedro, and they're certainly so there's a different strata of player. So we're more likely to see movements within the Premier League, you think, than movements from without.
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't think movements within the Premier League are likely either, Nick. I just think overwhelmingly nothing will happen in this window. And I think the press is getting way too riled up. Maybe things will be, maybe I'll be proven wrong. I certainly hope I am in regards to, let's say, Arsenal. But I just don't think much will happen. It really is, it's an unfortunate truth. Let's put it that way.
Well, Danny, I disagree with you, actually.
Nice.
I do disagree with you on this
Congratulations.
one. But we do have to go to break, and so we're going to do that.
All right.
But, the thing is, Danny, I think you'll be surprised. When we come back from break on World Soccer Radio, I'm going to tell you why I think Danny's wrong. And then we're also going to look at the Copa America coming in 2016. It's all very exciting. This is World Soccer Radio on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. I'm Nick Eber. He's Danny. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these messages right here on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Ten. All right, welcome back to the show. World Soccer Radio, Sports Byline USA Radio Network, Nick Eber, Danny Page. Man, I say that so much, Danny. I recognize now that it is World Soccer Radio on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network.
We are on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. Nick, we are legitimate on a legitimate outlet. There are real people involved in this program.
Really shocking. By the way, the discussion has been the January transfer window. We're going to continue the discussion. If you have a thought or a comment or believe that we are barking up the wrong tree, or at least if you believe that Danny's barking up the wrong tree, and he probably is, let's be honest, we would love to hear from you at World Soccer Radio. That's our Twitter handle, at World Soccer Radio. And I don't know if I mentioned what a pleasure and a privilege it is to be on the American Forces Radio Network. Look, we have a lot of distribution on this show. We're on all the affiliate stations of Sports Byline. We're on TuneIn.com. We're on iHeartRadio.com, where you can catch our video at WatchWSR.com. But the one that makes me the most proud, Danny, is to be on the fans channel of the American Forces Radio Network and to be speaking to our servicemen and women each and every weeknight from 9 p.m. Eastern Time, which could be God knows when, wherever they are around the world, but they're listening on American Forces. It's an honor and a privilege for us to do that. And so
it absolutely is.
We thank you for putting up with us, but we have a great time doing this, and we hope that we bring just a little bit of joy to your life, and we hope that our government will see fit to bring you home just as soon as they possibly can. Anyway, let's get to the January window, Danny, because we were talking a little bit about Chelsea before the break. And Chelsea, you see, I think, Danny, that you make a great point about the January window, about how players aren't going to want to move. And I think if you're talking about Man United, you may have a very good point. But if you're talking about Chelsea, or you're talking, well, let's not even say Man City, because Man City's a different matter altogether, because I think it's going to be very hard to break into that Man City lineup right now. But if you're talking about a big-name striker, and you're talking about Chelsea Football Club, or you're talking about a big-name striker and you're talking about Arsenal Football Club, I think that there's possibly two exceptions to what you're talking about there, Danny. Arsenal, because they have a real opportunity to win the Premier League. And if I were sitting in the Arsenal boardroom, if I were Ivan Gazidis or I was Stan Kroenke, okay, and I was sitting around saying, if there was ever a time that I'm going to push my very cheap French manager to part with some of my hard-earned cash, it is now, because I don't think there has ever been a time where we have been better suited or better positioned to win the Premier League in the last 8 years or 7 years than now. Now we have a fundamental paradigm shift going on in the Premier League. Now we have a fundamental power shift. There is a vacuum left by Man United. Now's an opportunity for us to take advantage of it. I believe they're saying that to Wenger. And Wenger's saying, I do not wish to spend the money on these overpriced players. And he may have a great point, but I think he's going to be forced to do it. I think the money will be right. However, I, like you, Danny, think that if for a player to go to Arsenal, they're going to have to be offered regular first-team football in a guaranteed position. Otherwise, I don't think they're nearly as attractive of a target as Chelsea.
The Guardian published a story on Tuesday of this week talking about the 5 strikers Arsenal should consider buying in January.
Okay.
And I really don't see maybe only one or two of them having a realistic chance of heading to Arsenal. Number 1 is Diego Costa. I've talked about him plenty over the last couple days, obviously. I just think there's no way a guy who has worked his way into the Brazil team, has 19 goals in 17 La Liga matches. There's no way you jump ship for the most challenging league in the world ahead of the World Cup.
Right.
The big one that's been rumored since Lewandowski confirmed his deal is Mario Mandzukic.
Right.
And I think Mandzukic could be a great fit at Arsenal. He will want to move on once Lewandowski arrives at Bayern. But that's just the problem. Lewandowski doesn't show up till the summer.
Yep.
Bayern need Mandzukic.
Yep.
The fact that the English press is running with this idea is just ridiculous.
No,
okay? Dimitar Berbatov is another consideration.
Well, that
would be a smart buy. He's eligible for the Champions League. Also on the Guardians list is Chicharito. United are not going to sell to Arsenal at this time. It just will not happen. He's out. Last but not least, they named Fernando Llorente. And Juve are pretty much going to run away with the Italian League title after what they did a couple days ago against Roma on Monday. I think they're going to cruise, and they're probably going to sell Llorente this summer. It looks like it just doesn't seem to be working. But I go back to the same issue. He's Champions League tied, and he wants to make sure he is in the Spanish team. Would he really go? What's my point, Nick, is that I don't think there's anyone out there, really. Berbatov is the way to go.
Well, I certainly think Berbatov would be a temporary fix for a portion of the problems at Arsenal. But Berbatov, the problem I have with Berbatov is he's too slow of a player. I actually think he's a terrific player, but he doesn't really fit in with the fast-moving Arsenal style of football. He's much too slow. He's much too much of a build-up player. He holds the ball up much too much. He's not the type of player that fits into that attacking system they've got at the Emirates. That's a move that I think makes sense on paper in terms of money, in terms of timing, in terms of where he's coming from, but I'm not sure that makes great sense in terms of the type of football that Arsenal plays. So I don't think that one is going to happen. I do wonder about exactly what it is they're going to do, about who they're going to go get, because quite honestly, Danny, they have to go get someone. There's no question. They have to go get someone. What are they going to do? What magic is Wenger going to pull out of his baguette?
That's not his happen? That's not his type of magic, though. You know, his type of magic is not in the it isn't in the transfer windows and the way he buys and already, like we said earlier in the show, getting someone in January before a World Cup is tremendously difficult. He really needs to do what he did in 2006 and somehow, you know, in that January window, remember, he bought Emmanuel Adebayor from Monaco, a club who had just in the year prior reached the Champions League final. It was a great buy from Wenger. Opened some things up, took some pressure off Henry, and that allowed Henry to help lead that Arsenal team onto the Champions League final in Paris in 2006, which they ultimately lost to Barcelona.
Right.
But that player just doesn't seem to be out there to me. Dimitar Berbatov, doesn't it feel like, if you look at the Arsenal team tactically, that if you have that big kind of stick in the mud forward, that he can hold up play and let all the little guys run in around him? Isn't that what Bentner was supposed to do for a long period of time? Just kind of, you know, really be the target forward that holds the ball down, holds up play, and lets everyone else come forward in front of him?
Do you think Berbatov has the work rate required to be on that Arsenal team?
No, I don't. But I do think that Berbatov is their only option. Berbatov is the only person that, in my mind, that they can sign when you look at that list of 5 individuals.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, by the way. I don't think he's a match for Arsenal. I think it's going to force too many tactical changes in the team that could in turn affect how they're doing. I think this Walcott injury is absolutely crippling for Arsenal. It really is. Of course, Oxlade-Chamberlain is getting ready to come back, so that will be helpful.
It will be helpful.
But that still doesn't make up for the loss of Theo Walcott. Be very, very hard. Listen, I wanted to. We talked a little bit about Chelsea. Man City.
They should buy Robin van Persie. That's my last comment.
Well, you know, hey, who knows what Man United will do, because they have some serious. We've been talking about the problems at Man United, but you know, let's talk about the January window specifically, Danny.
Right.
It's a big problem, and I'm going to tell you what the problems are. Number one. In the past, United would have been a very attractive location for some of these big-name players to go to. But it is looking like a real uphill battle for United to make it to the Champions League next year, number one. Number two, it's very, I mean, it is a complete long shot they're going to mount any type of a title challenge. And number three, it's looking like United are no longer going to be the 500-pound gorilla in the Barclays Premier League. Mm-hmm. So why would somebody leave a team like Barcelona or a team like Madrid to go play football at United, where, quite honestly, if they don't put some results together, they're going to look the profile of Tottenham for a while.
Hey, one huge Man United target is Koke. Okay, he's a 21-year-old He's a 21. Yeah, he's a 21-year-old midfielder for Atletico Madrid. He said, "Well, let's see. I'm finally in the Spain team. And I'm playing for a team that is challenging for the Liga BBVA title. Why would I go anywhere? Why would so many of these players go anywhere?" The one deal I think United can get done and need to get done, and it can really change their team, is they need to persuade Real Madrid into letting go of Fabio Coentrão. He's only made 4 league starts. Yeah. Nick, I think this is one of the best left backs in the world.
Yeah, this could
Coentrão is an athletic, ranging player with great class who really wants to move on. And instead of coveting Leighton Baines, which, why would you pay so much money for a 29-year-old left back? That's just, that's beyond me. I think that if they can make the Coentrão deal happen, it will be a huge boost to their team.
That could actually be the biggest signing of January.
Yeah.
And it could
really
be Man United. But I wonder if Contrao would go there, or if he becomes available, or if he's going in for him, if maybe Chelsea don't make a move.
Right. I think that's a great point as well, because Ashley Cole has sort of slumped into the Patrice Evra zone, hasn't he?
He has, absolutely. He's getting older. He's not, he's playing less matches. I mean, if they could get Fabio Contrao, I just don't know if he's a player that Mourinho really loves or not. We'll find out, right? Because the one thing that is that Mourinho will pass on players he doesn't want. And I can't see them making a preemptive move like they did to pick up Willian out of the noses of Tottenham when they didn't really need him. Although Willian is also showing some flashes of absolute brilliance.
Yeah, we really criticized him on this show, and I've kind of taken a closer look at some of his performances. He's been pretty solid for this team. Now, looking back for Chelsea, they spent $30 million on Willian. Would they rather have saved that and spent it towards a striker, really? Same thing with Schürrle. If they had combined those two purchases and ended up buying a big-name striker for $50 million, they'd probably be top of the table right now.
All right.
I just don't expect much to happen here, Nick. I just don't think that much is going to happen in this window when you look back at the history of these January windows.
All right, well, Danny, something that is going to happen, at least by all reports, is the Copa America is coming to the United States in 2016. A tournament that has been for the CONMEBOL region is now going to be opened up in 2016 to the U.S. and Mexico. They've been in it before by invitation, but this is the 100-year anniversary. Mexico and the U.S. will be playing. It's going to be held here in the United States. And let me tell you, if you're in the United States and you've been to some of these meaningless friendlies during the summer, or you've seen, the CONCACAF Gold Cup or all these sorts of things, put those out of your head. This is the biggest football event in the United States since we had the World Cup here. This is some really, really exciting stuff. And Danny, you know me, I'm jaded on international football. This one gets my blood going.
Well, it's a report from Marca, which I try as hard as I can, Nick, not to really believe what Marca has to say. I don't find it to be the most incredible journalistic entity. But I do think that this is finally coming to fruition. I think I worry about the report a little bit because the stadiums they said this game could be played in, like the Rose Bowl. I see that. MetLife Stadium, brand new, of course. RFK Stadium, probably not. Reliant Stadium. They also mentioned Stanford Stadium and the Florida Citrus Bowl. Remember, these were sites of the 1994 World Cup,
right?
And you feel like Marca is just sort of cooking something up on that end, and because we know in the U.S. those are not the class stadiums. Those are not the state-of-the-art 80,000 luxury box-filled stadiums.
Well, didn't they just?
I don't know if it's going to happen.
Where was the BCS championship game just played, Danny?
That was at the Rose Bowl, but I'm talking about they named Stanford Stadium, which hosted a '94 game. That was the wrong Stanford Stadium. That stadium is gone, and it's given way to a very small 50,000 seater. The games are not going to be at Stanford Stadium.
All right, well, there's never enough time to talk about what we want to, Danny. Maybe we'll pick this topic up again tomorrow. We do have to go to break, though. World Soccer Radio, Sports Byline USA, Nick Eber, Danny Page. We'll be right back to wrap it up here. Don't go anywhere. 5. All right, welcome back to the show, World Soccer Radio. My little sham 69 for you, Danny.
Yeah, okay.
Now, which team
Nick.
do they support?
Yeah, right.
Millwall. Big Millwall supporters.
Great.
But
Thank you.
I know that's important for you.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah,
for me.
you're welcome. All right, welcome back to
You
the show.
ever been to the Den, Nick?
I have, yes. I've been to many a stadium in and around the London area, and
Really?
Been to Manchester stadiums, of course, Anfield many times. I do love the football, and did growing up. Of course, my sister was a massive Queen's Park Rangers fan, Danny. So
Right.
Used to go to Loftus Road.
And you're
all the time.
supposed to be a QPR fan, but for some reason you picked up Liverpool.
No,
maybe that's because you were a fair weather supporter and they were good at that time.
You were absolutely right. In fact, when I became a Liverpool supporter, which was way back in the late 70s,
Ian Rush.
in the mid 70s, actually, let me get that
Yeah.
right, mid 70s.
So when they were really getting started.
Yeah, they were really getting started in mid 70s. They came down to Arsenal. I was at Highbury with a bunch of my young friends at the time. There was a 10-year-old or a 9-year-old. And we were in the owners and directors box because most of my friends, their daddies, were owners of Arsenal or involved in the team.
Okay.
And I watched Liverpool put a right thrashing on Arsenal, and at that
Really?
point became a huge Liverpool fan. A fair weather fan, no doubt, Danny Page, but I have stuck with them all these years. So after, 35 years of supporting the team, because I was about 10 maybe more, maybe nearly 40 years of supporting the team, Danny, I think I'm entitled to call myself a Liverpool supporter.
Absolutely, but that was the point I was making yesterday. I think a lot of these Man United fans are going to hang on and stick with their club here in the U.S.
Well, I hope they do, Danny. I hope they do, because that's what fans do.
too.
You stick with your team thick and thin. Love them, but maybe don't like the predicament. But you got to stay with your team. That's all part of being a supporter. All right, folks. I hope you will, stick with us every weeknight from 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Right here on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network. We do have to leave you right now, and so we will do that with a little music. There we go, a bit loud. Anyway, stay tuned, folks. Coming up next here on the Sports Byline USA Radio Network, Mr. Ron Barr, a legend of the game of broadcasting, coming up next on Sports Byline. In the meantime, we'll be back with you tomorrow right here, same place, same time. Cheers. Until then, have a great night.